Hi friends, welcome back to my channel. Today in this video, I'm going to show you how you can configure proxy chaining on Fortigate Firewall. By proxy chaining, I mean when you have multiple proxies in your network, which are listening on explicit ports defined under the proxy settings, and you forward the traffic from one proxy server, which in your case could be a firewall or a dedicated proxy device, and then sends it to another proxy device in your network. So by doing this, you are basically achieving a chain of proxies in your network. In my case, if you see on my shared screen, I have a proxy, FortiGate proxy, which is listening on port 4444 and 4445 on port 1. As you can see here, this is the proxy port on which the Fortigate firewall listens to. Okay. And then this is the IP address on which it listens on port 1. Well, when you receive the traffic on your Fortigate proxy firewall on this port, you will then forward it to an external proxy, which is your Squid proxy. In my case, which is listening on the port number 3128. And on the IP address 14.140.40.130. Okay. So the client sends the request to the FortiGate proxy on port 1 on this IP and port. And in return, FortiGate proxy forwards traffic to the Squid proxy. Okay. And then Squid proxy basically completes the communication by reaching out to the specific domain that we are trying to reach. Okay. So your communication breaks into multiple legs. One is from client to your FortiGate firewall, another one from the FortiGate firewall to the proxy server upstream, and then the last leg is from the external proxy to your actual server. And proxy chaining is very rare to observe in a network because it induces a lot of latency, because you are basically breaking your communication into multiple legs. In our case, it is 1, 2, 3. So most of the time the client will have issues with accessing the servers, with latencies, timeouts, and hence it is very rare to see these kind of setups. All right, so that's all about the theory part. I mean, IP, there are two ports engaged here. One is the port 1, other one is the port 2. The FortiGate proxy receives the traffic on this port on an explicit port, which is this one and this one, and then forwards the traffic to Squid proxy, which is listening on port 3128. And then it forwards it to the external actual server to complete the communication. Well, that's all in the theory part. Let's move on to the actual configuration. So I have listed down the points. So the first thing that you would have to do is, enable the feature visibility and then select explicit proxy there. So we'll see this part first. So this is my FortiGate firewall, which is having the IP address 192.168.0.113 on port 1. This is the port 1. And port 2, 14.140.40.113. This one. And then first thing what you will have to do is go to the system feature visibility, look for the explicit proxy here. I have already enabled it, so make sure you check this and then apply the changes. I already have it applied, so I'll go to network and then I'll see a tab explicit proxy. So let's see the next point. IP addressing we have seen, route to external proxy. I'll show you. Well, this is the route that is forwarding the traffic to the external squid proxy. And then comes the explicit proxy settings on the FortiGate firewall. So this is the FortiGate firewall. Under network, you will have to click on explicit proxy, enable it, and then select the port. In my case, I have selected as port 1, okay, which is having the IP address 192.168.0.113. And I have given a port range for HTTP and HTTPS traffic. For HTTP, it's port 4444 and 4445. And I have used the same range for HTTPS as well. There is no pack file associated. If you want, you can enable it and then put the URL from where you can download the pack file automatically on your browser. But then this is out of the scope of this tutorial. If you want, you can check out my previous video on how to configure proxy on Fortigate Firewall, where I have explained the use of pack file. And I have, selected unknown HTTP version as best effort instead of rejecting it. And I have enabled accept for the default policy action. By, I think, first time when you do the configuration, it will be in deny. So I have given it as accept. Outgoing IP, well, I'm choosing the same as interface IP, which is, forwarding the traffic to the external proxy, which in my case is going to be 14.140.40.113, this IP. And yeah, so this is the part. You will have to click on create. This is the server that you will have to create. Basically, you're creating a list of server to whom you can forward the traffic to on an explicit port and IP address. So in my case, I've already created it. I'm going to show you the one that is already created. So I've given the name as Squid Proxy and I have used IP address. If you have FQDN, you can update it here. Make sure you have a proper DNS setting to resolve that FQDN. So in my case, I've given IP address 14.140.40.130, which listens on 3128, which is basically my Squid proxy, this one. And I have not configured any monitoring here. Basically, you have the flexibility of choosing the action when the upstream proxy is down. So as you can see here, server down action block. So you can click here as well, and then you can have a monitoring, which basically tries to access this through the proxy and make sure everything goes fine. If it is not reachable via the proxy, it'll block the traffic that is coming onto the Fortigate firewall, and then based on your action define, it'll not forward to the external proxy, or it'll find the next possible route. So basically, health monitoring is to check whether the upstream proxy is up or not. If server is down, basically block all the traffic. So that was all about configuring the explicit proxy setting and then configuring the port. So this thing okay. Yeah. So next was web proxy forwarding server, which we have already seen. So there are multiple ways of configuring it. This is the CLI way, where as in you can see the commands. I think I have already listed down. So this is the command config web proxy server, and then get into the hierarchy web proxy forward server, and then edit, name it, and then set the IP address and then the port. So here you can see this is the same thing from GUI. This is the same thing from CLI. Okay, so this is also done. Configure proxy policy. Okay, so once you enable the explicit proxy under feature visibility, you will see a tab under policy and objects as a proxy policy. Okay, in the proxy policy, since I already have a proxy policy, so I'm going to show you the settings there. So this is the name of the proxy policy. Explicit web listens on port 1, which is our ingress interface, port 1 on 44 and 4445. Egress is port 2. Port 2, source all, destination all, service all, basically is for TCP from 0 to 65535. And here you'll see a tab, web proxy forwarding server. So make sure you enable this. And then in the drop down, you will have to select the one that you have created in the previous step. This is the same as what was done in the last step. So this is the name of the proxy that you have created. I don't know why it is not showing the port, but then I already have the port configured under this hierarchy, under web proxy forward server. And then outgoing IP. So once it leaves the firewall, what is the IP address that you would like to have for that particular communication? So I've given it as proxy default, which is again going to use the port 2 IP in our case. So if you remember in the last step, I showed you the configuration where it was asking for the outgoing IP. Okay, if you want, you can click on all original source IP, or you can create a pool as well. No inspection I'm doing. Okay, this is about the explicit policy configuration. I'll show you one more time what I was talking about. So here, this was the setting. This is the default that it'll take if you don't define it there in the proxy policy, same as interface IP, which basically means the out interface IP. And I'm going to show you in the packet capture as well. So this is all about the configuration on the FortiGate firewall. Let's try to test it out. So this is the client machine. Okay, so basically I'm using curl command to connect to the proxy, which is the FortiGate firewall IP, port 1 and 4444. Okay, So this command will force the client to send a connect message to the FortiGate firewall, and then it'll ask the FortiGate firewall to create a tunnel with this particular website. Okay, so I'm going to start the capture as well. Okay, this is also done. Enable web proxy forwarding server in the proxy policy and select. And the last step is to enable the packet capture on the FortiGate firewall. So under network packet capture, let's try to enable the packet capture so that we have all the information. Okay, so now we are going to reach out to this website from the client machine using the Fortigate proxy IPN port. Might take some time because there are multiple legs. You can see here on the Squid proxy logs, TCP miss means there were no cache data. You can see here the Squid proxy is trying to reach out to the website, and then once done, it'll relay the information. Should have used filter there. Okay, seems like the communication is done. Let's see our data. So you can see here the output, which is basically a connect message from the client to the FortiGate firewall, which is on port 1. Okay, and on port 4444. So it is asking to connect to this particular URL. User agent is curl. As you see, I'm using curl utility. So this is from the Squid proxy. You can see the miss from my Squid proxy server. So the request is fetched from the Squid proxy. Let's see it on the packet capture, how it looks like. So first we'll see it on the port 1, just to clarify that the traffic is going through the FortiGate firewall. As you can see, three-way handshake. After that, there is a message. You can see here. Okay, this is the communication. And then rest of the communication. Let's try to do it again. And this is on port 2, which is forwarding the traffic to the external proxy, which is listening on 3128, as you can see. So this is the firewall IP forwarding traffic to the external squid proxy on port 3128. You can see here, this is the URI that the actual client is trying to reach out to. And these communications are, having multiple splits across your network. And the same thing, you can see it on the proxy as well. Let's try to access something else. You can see here, this is directly fetched from the squid proxy. And you can see here it is connected to the Fortigate Firewall IP and explicit proxy port. And same thing, you can see it here. It is trying to reach out to the external. This is the squid proxy, which is trying to reach out to the external website, which is cisco.com, and complete the communication. And the same thing, you can find it in the Wireshark capture as well. And you can do it for the HTTPS traffic as well. It is taking time to complete the communication. I have disabled the caching on the squid proxy, so most of the time you will see miss. So you can see here, HTTP get, and then rest of the communication. Same thing goes through. This is being forwarded to an external. So this is the URL that we tried reaching out to. So you can see here, this is the communication from our firewall to the squid proxy on port 3128. So you can see here, last communication that we tried. This is the HTTP get. Okay. For the host cisco.com. And then Cisco. And then the firewall will try to communicate to the external proxy to complete the communication. You can see. So that is the reason why you see a delay when I try to reach out to these websites. Anyways, that's all in this video. It is pretty simple configuration on the firewall, and I don't know how can it help you in your network setup, but then make sure you have, a very good network setup if you're trying to achieve proxy chaining, because it is going to induce a lot of latency. All right, then that's all in this video. And if you have any questions, any comments, do leave them in the comment sections, and you can refer to the documentation as well, and I will paste it in the description as well. All right, then please do subscribe to my channel, hit the like button if you really enjoyed the video, and stay safe. Until then, bye bye.